So as far as New Testament reliability and some of the debates I've watched, and I think in Dan Wallace, when he was talking with Bart Ehrman, towards the end, they talked about, I think someone said basically, well, if you take out reliability of the New Testament, then you got to take out reliability of any other manuscripts of antiquity. And I understand that argument. And so that got me thinking, okay, are there any manuscripts of antiquity that people are using today, quote unquote, maybe the foundation of what they do today is based upon those manuscripts, but they just don't know it. You understand what I'm saying?
Well, I know the context. The context, obviously, is that the New Testament is the best attested document of antiquity, and therefore, since there are all sorts of other books, Greek and Latin works, Pliny and Suetonius, and so on and so forth, Philo and Plato and all these works of antiquity, they're roughly contemporaneous to the New Testament. We have all those sources being cited regularly in scholarship, even though we do not have nearly as much evidence as far as not only numbers, but early dates of manuscripts that underlie those particular works. And so if you're going to do the Bart Ehrman, well, it's sometimes Bart Ehrman, sometimes not Bart Ehrman. Depends on what day of the week it is for Bart Ehrman. But if you do the extreme skepticism route, then by necessity and consistency, you're going to have to be extremely, even more skeptical about all of these other works. And I think I've heard Ehrman say, it's been a while since I've done much with old Bart because he's not doing nearly as many debates and stuff these days. But I think I've heard him say, yeah, we should be just as skeptical about these other things. But the reality is no one is as skeptical about these other sources, and that there is a general scholarly consensus that we have a sufficient knowledge of what Plato wrote. There might be more passages. We're not exactly sure what terminology he used, but in general, we know Plato's corpus, and we know Philo, and we know Suetonius and Tacitus and all the rest of the gang from back then, even though we don't have nearly as much or as early a manuscript testimony. And so the basic idea is you're being inconsistent. Maybe you have an axe to grind against the New Testament, which certainly Bart Ehrman does. And hence you're being inconsistent. Is
and when
general
you say you're being inconsistent, I know you're not talking about me, but so say somebody says, "Okay, I agree with you. I understand what you're saying about these other works as well, and I feel that way as well."
Right. I mean, that is the only position to take. And if someone takes that position, which is exceptionally rare, at least they're being consistent. And you could really then push them to adopt the absurd view that basically we don't know anything about history until a pretty recent period, maybe back to the Revolutionary War period or something like that. I mean, you really could push it so far with some of the ultra skepticism that Ehrman has sometimes enunciated that until 1949 and the invention of the photocopier, you could never have the accurate transmission of text and things like that. But the whole idea is that it's extremely rare to have that kind of a skeptic. And when you run into one, they're not going to be able to be consistent because they're not going to be able to make much of any type of historical arguments because from their perspective, they don't have a clue what happened in history. And so all they can do is to sit there and say, well, I don't know. So nobody really does that. And I guess that's the idea is that you're trying to push them.
Yeah, and I think that's where and sorry, the person that's being skeptical is me, unfortunately. And I mean, I just finished Dr. Kruger's book that you recommended maybe back at G3. And I think sometimes I get stuck on some of these YouTube comment sections and
YouTube comment sections?
Well, like if I'm watching a debate or if I'm watching something related to Christianity and I can't reach out to that specific person to have them expound upon an idea they talked about, maybe sometimes I'll go down in the YouTube comment section just to see if there's anything worth reading, which very rarely is there ever,
right,
by the way. And so I think sometime, I don't know, maybe I just need to understand my own argument better. And I don't know, I just seem confused lately for some reason. I'm trying to figure that out.
Well, but I'm confused as to what you are skeptical about. I mean, what is?
I think is there a difference between reliability and believability when you think about the New Testament?
Of course, because there's all sorts of ancient texts that are reliable, but they're completely unbelievable.
Okay, and how would you transfer how do you transfer from reliability to believability?
Spirit of God, primarily. I mean, it obviously has to do with what the content is. I mean, we have papyri copies of bills of sale and stuff like that are completely reliable and completely believable. I mean, people were selling stuff in Caesarea Maritima, and we've found papyri that talk about it. So it's reliable and it's believable, but it's irrelevant to us. It's irrelevant to us today. So there is the issue of the reliability, the transmission of the text over time, because what it contains is important. But that's fundamentally a different thing than the content, which engages us in discussions today of a supernatural worldview versus a naturalist worldview, and the standards that are going to flow from the worldview you bring, and from my perspective, absolute emptiness of a secular worldview and the things that flow from it. It also introduces you to areas of comparing claims of the Muslims have their claims and we've got our claims, and so you've got that realm of discussion and believability and consistency and things along those lines. We address that fairly frequently. But when you boil it all down, the real question is: do you believe that an empty tomb is what makes the difference between all the ancient teachers and the one who prophesied his own death and resurrection and left behind an empty tomb?
Right.
Sort of like,
sounds like I need to understand better my own why I'm vacillating recently. Maybe I don't think I understand that about myself right now.
Well, I'll be honest with you. Sometimes that answer will frighten you because it'll point you to certain aspects of your life that you may even be deceiving yourself about, and it may not have anything to do with epistemology or history or anything else. We are complicated creatures, and we find ways of hiding from God. Yeah. So I would.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd look at that. I can't over a phone line do spiritual diagnosis, but
I understand.
But that might be something. That's why it's good to have good brothers in the Lord that you can just honestly ask, hey, what do you see in me, and get a good conversation started.
Got it. Yeah, and that's my next step. And you can let Rich know to not worry about I sent a message in through your guys' contact form on AOMen, because I wasn't sure if I'd be calling anytime soon because work's been crazy. But so I appreciate it. And
okay, Ryan. Well,
you guys have a good one.
All right. Thanks. God bless. We'll see you.
Yeah.